Welcome. My name is Manfred Steger, and I'm delighted to give you the basics of globalization in 5 minutes or less. So let's get right to it. What is globalization? Globalization is a process of worldwide expansion. What is being expanded? Social relations and consciousness. Now, what are the main qualities of globalization? I argue that there are three basic qualities. The first one is connectivity. Connectivity understood as the forging of worldwide linkages and ties. Think of the internet as a wonderful example of connectivity. Second quality of globalization, mobility, understood as the acceleration of flows, of movements, of networks. Again, wonderful example of mobility would be the movement of business travelers or the movement of refugees across political borders. Third quality of globalization, imagination. Imagination understood as people's expanding consciousness of the world as a single place. The idea of global citizenship, cosmopolitanism, knowing that you're part of a global human community that more and more is sinking in as globalization proceeds. What are the major elements of globalization? Argue that there are really four formations of globalization. Formation of people, formation of ideas, formation of things and organizations. People, of course, we already talked about tourists, refugees, business travelers who cross borders in larger numbers and faster than ever before. Second element, disembodied formations of globalization, ideas, information, data. Think of the digital media, especially the social media, as a wonderful example of disembodied globalization. Third, objectified globalization, the quality of things that are moving, that are expanding, that are interconnecting, small things like viruses, COVID-19, to very large tradable commodities in ships, in large containers that really make the world go round. And the fourth element of globalization is institutional. These are organizations like transnational corporations, like Exxon, or Microsoft, or GM, or Ford, that are reaching across the world. Churches that are multiplying, that are popping up on different continents. Think of clubs like sports club, football clubs like Manchester United, that has hundreds of fan clubs around the world. That's institutional globalization. So the four major elements of globalization are people, ideas, things, and organizations moving more quickly and extensively than ever before. Finally, how can globalization be measured? I think there are four criteria that are really very helpful in thinking about how we can measure globalization. The first is extensity. What is the extensity of the network? How far does it reach? Right? Ideally, globalization means that it reaches worldwide. But there are lots of local and national and regional networks that are tied into global dynamics that are also part of globalization. So extensity is the first criterion. The second one is intensity, the intensity of global interconnectedness. How much is moving, like in terms of data? Think about the introduction of 5G networks as a good example. Much more data can move around. So intensity is the second criterion. The third criterion is velocity. How fast are global flows? How fast are global interconnectivities being measured, are being forged, right? We measure it in terms of the pace. And we all know that people move around the world much more quickly through jet travel and other forms of transportation than ever before. And finally, final criterion is impact. We can measure the impact of global interconnectedness in terms of how forceful, how powerful it is. Think of the Syrian refugees in the 2010s who came to Europe and the impact that they had in terms of the societies that received them. So these are the 4 criteria of how we can measure globalization: extensity, intensity, velocity, and impact. And this, my friends, is my take on the basics of globalization in 5 minutes or less. Thank you for viewing.